Welcome back. You're watching News Centre, and we are looking at the fallout of Trump's announcement of an additional 25% tariff on India as a penalty for import of Russian oil. He has said that if the negotiations don't lead to a positive result and India does not stop buying Russian oil, then these tariffs would come into effect on the 27th of August. But what will be the larger impact on the long-term India-US strategic relationship? Joining us on the show is Vikas Swarup, former Indian High Commissioner to Canada, former spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs. Thank you very much for being with us in the studio, Ambassador Swarup. We were among the first countries to start negotiating a trade deal in February. What's gone wrong?
I think obviously what has gone wrong, Parikshit, is the fact that we have not caved in to the US pressure. And I look at these imposition of these fresh tariffs on India as part of the maximum pressure strategy of the so-called art of the deal. You know, ratchet up the pressure on us to such an extent that we are forced to shift the goalpost. So the fact that we did not agree to the US maximalist demands on access in agriculture, dairy and genetically modified foods, I think is what has led to the imposition of these tariffs.
Right. Is it only about buying Russian oil?
No, I think it is much more than that. So let's look at this in totality. I think if you look at the way things have evolved in the India-US relationship, I think first of all we have to acknowledge the fact that Trump is indeed miffed with India. He's miffed with India, first of all, for our membership of BRICS, which he sees for some reason as an anti-US alliance, which is hell-bent on creating an alternative currency to the US as the world's reserve currency. That's number one. But more than that, I think he's miffed at our repeated snubbing of his role as the chief architect of the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Because now Trump has, I think, repeated about 25 times that he was the one who got India and Pakistan to agree to a ceasefire. He was the one who got India and Pakistan to stop a so-called nuclear conflagration in the subcontinent. And contrast the approaches of the two countries. On the one hand, you have Pakistan, which has publicly acknowledged Trump's role in bringing about the ceasefire and has nominated him for a Nobel Peace Prize. And on the other hand, you have India, which has declared in its parliament that there was no external mediation at all and that the ceasefire was mediated directly between the DGMOs of India and Pakistan. So obviously Trump would be miffed. But more than that, I think this is also a signal to Russia, because Trump is now frustrated at his inability to bring about a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Remember, he had promised that he would end hostilities in that part of the world within 24 hours of assuming office. Well, now it's been much more than 24 hours, and he's not been able to get the two warring parties to agree to a ceasefire. So this is also a signal to Russia that if you don't play ball, then we are ready to cut off your economic supply chains.
Does India have any leverage available? You're already saying that he's miffed with us for not thanking him, for not acknowledging his role. But at this point, in the next 21 days, do we have any options left in the diplomatic toolkit?
Of course, I think, as President Trump told President Zelensky that you have no cards, I don't think it's correct to say that India does not have any cards. Let's not forget, we are the fastest growing major economy in the world. We are the fourth largest economy in the world. Many American tech companies, for them, India is the largest market. Then we have a 5 million strong Indian-American diaspora, which wants closer ties between India and America. We have 330,000 Indian students studying in America who are contributing to the US economy. So I think we do have cards, and more than that, we are the only strategic bulwark to China in the Asia-Pacific region, and Trump knows that. Apart from that, I think we are the best partner that America can have in areas such as technology and defense and space. We already saw a joint launch of a satellite jointly developed by ISRO and NASA. So I think we do have some cards, but that does not mean that we have to play all our cards at once. Right now, I think the need of the hour is strategic patience. We have to wait out and see. Maybe on the 25th of August, we will have American negotiators come in once again. We will see whether we can sweeten the deal to a certain extent which can appease the Americans. And I think we should wait this period out, because there is also a possibility that there may be a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. President Trump has declared that he wants to meet President Putin and President Zelensky in probably a week's time. And if I think a Russia ceasefire comes along, then I think the Russian sanctions would be off the table.
Should India even consider retaliation?
India should definitely consider retaliation if even after 6 months, these tariffs are not removed, because then I think, the exposure that American companies have to India also should be part of our matrix.
When it comes to trade protectionism, Donald Trump calls us the tariff king. Is it time for India to consider reforms for the long term, use this crisis as an opportunity? Is it time to drop some protections in agriculture and dairy as well?
I think it is definitely time for India to drop some protections. I think some sectors need to be protected. Particularly, I think genetically modified crops, will have a huge impact on the livelihoods of our marginal farmers. And don't forget, 45% of our population is engaged in agriculture. So I think dairy, marine exports, agriculture, these are certainly red lines for us. But that does not mean that we should not open up other sectors of the economy. Because if you look at it, Indian manufacturing, I think, has been far too much shielded from international competition. And that is why Indian products are still not competitive in the international markets. We spend just a fraction of our GDP on R&D compared to 2.5% in China. So unless we allow fair competition to come in and this, increases the competitiveness of Indian industry, we will not be able to compete with the rest of the world. So I think we must use, as you rightly said, this crisis as an opportunity to open up the Indian economy. I had just read that there are 1,450 compliance burdens on MSMEs in India. Now, that is just far too much. So maybe it's another 1991 moment for us. It's time for the second phase of the opening up of the Indian economy, making it more competitive and turbocharging it.
What would we stand to lose if the 50% tariffs stay and we're not able to have a deal with Washington?
No, obviously we stand to lose quite a bit because let's not forget, 18 to 20% of our exports go to the United States. The Federation of Indian Export Organizations has said that up to 55% of India's exports to the US would be impacted by these high tariffs. Because at 50%, basically none of our products will be competitive in the US market. Because let's not forget, even the competitors we have in the region, whether it is Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and then far afield, whether it is Malaysia, Vietnam, Philippines, they all have much lower tariffs than India at the moment, if the 25% Russia tariffs also come into play. So I think we have to absolutely ensure that we do not lose the US market for good. And I think US would also recognize that, over 2 decades, they have built up the India-US relationship. It should not be sacrificed at the altar of just these punitive tariffs.
Right. And if the deal does not happen, do you think there will be a long-term damage to the relationship, which we may not be able to resolve for maybe the next 5 to 10 years? Because as we've been told by experts, once you deploy tariffs, it's very difficult to pull them back.
I agree. In fact, that's why many people are saying that Trump may go after 3.5 years, but Trumpism may remain. Because let's not forget, the tariffs are now bringing $100 billion into the US economy. And the US economy may become dependent on those tariffs to sort of balance out the massive trade deficit they have, the massive debt they have, about $36 trillion. So I personally feel the India-US relationship is far too important to be dependent on just one presidency. My sense is we will definitely outlast this particular turmoil phase. I would say this is a storm. This is not a rupture. And I think to the extent that, saner heads prevail on both sides and we are able to, pull back from the brink, I think it will be better for both the economies.
Also, would you say that what we're seeing right now in the US, Donald Trump is seeking strategic political alignment. It's my way or the highway. Either you be completely aligned with me or not at all. Do you also feel that perhaps this is time in the United States when the bureaucracy is thinking that we've invested so much in the relationship with India and we need greater strategic alignment, which we're not getting? Is that also true to some extent?
Look, India is too large and too proud a nation to ever become a camp follower. Strategic autonomy has been the bedrock of Indian foreign policy right from the 50s. We did not compromise in 1971 when the 7th Fleet was marching towards India. We did not compromise during the NPT negotiations. We did not compromise during the CTBT negotiations, the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. We did not compromise during the climate change negotiations. So I think that is off the table. Our strategic autonomy is non-negotiable. Our energy security is non-negotiable. Because let's not forget, the fact that India purchases Russian oil at a discount is important for our consumers, and it is also important for the global market. Because the International Energy Agency has estimated that if you take Russian oil, which comes to India, off the market completely, that leads to a 2% loss of supply. And a 2% loss of supply will translate into $6 to $10 increase of the crude price per barrel.
Right. My final question would be, is America making a strategic pivot towards Pakistan? We're also reading reports in the Pakistani media that Asim Munir may be visiting the United States once again.
I think I would characterize it the US as making a strategic mistake. If they choose Pakistan over India, then they are choosing a failed economy over the world's fastest growing major economy. And, we have much more equities with the United States than Pakistan can ever hope to have. So I think the US is making a strategic mistake. Even if there is this pivot to Pakistan, I think it will be a short term, because let's not forget, at the end of the day, Pakistan is an ultimate client state of China. And China is the biggest strategic competitor to the United States. 81% of Pakistan's military hardware comes from China. Would the US want to be in bed with the country which is the client state of China? Or you would rather be friends with the world's largest democracy?
Right. So that's an interesting note to end on. But we're living in Trump's times, and there's a lot of uncertainty every morning and at night. Let's see how we really resolve and get out of this situation. Ambassador Swarup, it's a pleasure having you here in our studios to talk about the recent India-US trade tensions. That's all we have time for here on News Centre. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.